When I was cleaning out my parents' basement yesterday, I found a gem. Check this out. So, if you guys went to middle school in the 2000s, besides English, you had to take a class called reading. Like, you can decide not to take it, but in 6th grade, I took it. In reading class, basically just practice your reading comprehension. You read books. One of the assignments for reading class in 6th grade was to write your own newspaper or your own periodical, your own newsletter, whatever it's called these days, you know. Our world's evolved a lot since then. So I was digging through my parents' basement and I found this assignment. I wanted to share it with you. So here I put on my old man glasses. If you remember old newspapers, they came with a weather report and then they had the price up here. And then look at that. This was 2002, man. Can you believe that? I don't know if newspapers had this, but I think news magazines definitely had this. So that was a table of contents. And then wrote a random news story. This one, she said you can make up. My reading teacher's name was Miss Briggs. She was quite a character. She loved conspiracy theories, and initially, I didn't get along with her, but once we discovered that we both like conspiracy theories, we started talking about aliens and stuff like that. So, a lot of you know I am fairly good at interviewing people. I don't particularly like people, but I'm very good at interviewing people. So, this was the first interview I ever did. First interview I ever did. Crazy. And I totally forgot about this because the year after this, I did a similar interview assignment, but for my English class. And I thought that was my first interview ever, but this was actually my first interview. So let me show you guys. He was my health teacher at the time. His name was Mr. Wilberdine. I scheduled a time with him. I think it was right before lunch or something like that. And I just talked to him for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I remember there was one part where I asked him a question and he didn't understand my questions. I don't know if I didn't ask the question well or reading comprehension-wise, he just didn't understand. Reading comprehension-wise, listening comprehension-wise, he didn't understand my question, but he answered it incorrectly. So when I first wrote the rough draft to this, the reading teacher, Miss Briggs, was like, Jerry, you didn't fulfill one of the criteria. And I had to go up to Miss Briggs and I had to say, he didn't answer it that way. So then Miss Briggs told me, in the future, you could always explain it in the interview. He dodged the question or didn't understand. Or she also said, you can also just re-ask the question or ask the question another way. So little things like that you don't really understand as a kid because you've never interviewed, but then it becomes more intuitive as you keep going. Maybe part of it was this first interview and I didn't do it at an excellent quality, right? One question slipped through that didn't get processed by my interview subject. And maybe that moment made me a better interviewer because then I was able to kind of explain things, phrase things, rephrase things in a way that maybe if this first interview went so well without a hitch, I would have never thought about it more, tried to reform and repackage my whole process. A lot of you know I spent more than a year in journalism and even freelance afterwards. I was still in journalism for many years and I also worked in PR. So obviously, if you want to trace when that happened, because middle school and high school, I never worked for the school paper. And even in college, I only briefly worked for the school paper. So where can you trace that love for interviewing people, right? It's probably this assignment I did. And then this was not a made-up story. This was, you had to actually report on something in the news, so that was pretty cool. I remember my parents really didn't like this article, so they actually got on my case. They made me write it better. So that was pretty, you know, Asian parents right there. A book review, if you guys remember, papers, magazines, they always had book reviews. And then I cannot show you this comic. Most newspapers / magazines have comics, right? So I drew a little fun comic. It was a war comic, in case you guys are wondering. This last part is absolutely hilarious. Magazines, newspapers, even now YouTube, etc., make their money by selling ad space. right? So we pretended to air an ad, advertise a product, and I invented a product that put a fork and a spoon and a knife together. And, you know, I did this as a joke, right? I thought this was funny. You guys can tell me in the comments. I swear I've seen utensils now. They're more like, what do you call them? Disposable utensils that are fork, spoon, and knife in one. I swear, like, I came up with this before. I just was too young. I didn't have the manufacturing and finance entrepreneurship classes to be able to make this product. I would have made millions. By the way, I'm not used to East Coast weather. That's why I'm sweating like crazy. Oh, yeah. Remember back in the day, in your newspaper columns and stuff, they had those Dear Abby posts, basically people writing with their problems and an expert solved their problems. I wrote a fake one too. I basically pretended to be Romeo and I wrote to Aphrodite about my love for Juliet. And the teacher, Miss Briggs, thought that was really funny. This is Aphrodite's response to Romeo. Your story is similar to another called Romeo and Juliet. Look at that. I understood this type of humor. Like, what do you call this? Like, I don't know. Like, my humor was very, very not middle school, right? It was very deep, you know. This could be a sign of being a neurotypical kid. A lot of people say that about me. So, in that story, Romeo and Juliet both die. I don't want that to happen to you. You and Julia somehow could get your families to talk about their problems. So my computer unfortunately ran out of space, so we're gonna have to end this little video. But I wanted to show you guys this because if you guys are familiar with Jordan Peterson, he made famous that whole clean your room trope, right? And besides cleaning your room, as in putting things in order, getting organized, starting from within, and also taking out head trash, right? Things that might be there that kind of impede certain behaviors or thought patterns, it's important to deal with that. The other important thing that, especially this time as I was taking out the trash, I realized you can also find genuine things that inspire you, that give you good memories, that give you new angles on life. So that's another reason to get organized. I don't think you should automatically just toss everything immediately, right? That's something that I would see a lot of my friends in middle school do. They're done with the class. Literally, the class ends, they throw everything into the trash. And I don't think that was a good idea, but it's also not a good idea. Just put everything in the basement. And talking about this, I also want to give a shout out to Lauren. Lauren is home right now, cleaning out her basement, and I asked her if she's found any gems, and so far she says no. So I hope, Lauren, you find some gems like this to inspire you, because she's a very intelligent girl, and I know she's going to find something like this. There's something really special about discovering something that relates directly to what you sort of fell into, whether career-wise or hobby-wise, and sense of humor / the ability to interview people despite not really enjoying being around too many people. Seems like some of it started with this assignment in reading class in middle school. Advice column letter thing I wrote, I'm like, wow, I had a sense of humor that was way ahead of its time. Like, this is almost borderline Gen Z humor. I'm not Gen Z, guys. Anyways, talk to you guys soon. Hope you guys, when you're looking through very old stuff that isn't needed, clear it out, but occasionally I hope you find some very funny, inspirational gems too. Okay guys, talk to you soon.